You go on a first date with someone. What habit or characteristic is a deal breaker? I went on a date with a girl. This date was a disaster. She got food in her hair and all over the place. She wouldn't get off her phone. And she stabbed herself in the cheek with her fork because she wasn't paying attention. I've never seen her since. Here is a great story. First date in college. I drive a truck and live in a city. So spots are tight. This spot is particularly tight. So I say, this is a tight spot, so watch your door when you open it. Girl, are you telling me how to open my door? Doesn't pay basic attention and slams the door into the other car. Repeatedly interrupting me when I'm talking. Especially when I'm answering a question they asked. It tells me they're not actually engaged in what I'm saying. I know a girl who asks every guy she goes on a date with what his credit score is. She wants to make sure they're financially stable. Also, she's 23 and doesn't know how to pump gas. Does she offer AL when it's above 730? Self-deprecating to the point where everything needs to be somehow connected in a negative way back to yourself. Like literally everything. While chatting it's even more obvious. Sad faces all the time. I'm dumb. I don't deserve what I've achieved, etc. It's a fine line to walk when self-deprecating. I think the good version of it is when it's just used for comedy's sake and you're not actually looking to be validated. I love to playfully jab at myself and do things that look or stupid to tell a joke. But I never want the other person to feel like they have to compliment me in response. You can usually tell the intent on whether it's a thinly veiled prod for approval or someone genuinely making themselves laugh by being the butt of a joke. Semi-ironically making fun of myself for being an idiot cracks me up more than I'd like to admit, lol. How about when I was invited out with a guy the first met online to a nearby sushi place? We'd texted and chatted for about a week till I finally felt comfortable meeting him. Date picked me up. The conversation on the drive there was great. Seemed like we were connecting. However, while at the restaurant, he proceeded to order about $100 worth of sushi. While I ordered maybe a roll and some appetizers. My total would have been about $30. At most. I tried to engage him. But quickly realized the conversation was lacking. Because he was busy. He proceeded to text on his phone the entire time at dinner. Ignored me and took pics of his food. Posted that the place we were at was amazing. He ate everything in front of him. Okay, gotcha. At this point, I knew what was going on. And when the bill came, he was still on his phone. Posting, texting, laughing at the response to his posts. He ignored the waiter, plus the bill. The waiter politely left it on the table. I looked at my date. Then the waiter. Date never looked up from his phone. I then quietly and politely asked the waiter to split our bill since date was so consumed with his phone. He didn't notice. Waiter retrieved the bill, adjusted it, then came back, with separate bills this time. The look on my date's face when he was handed a $100 bill for his food was priceless. I paid mine with my card. Plus a hefty tip. Date asked me, oh crap. I forgot my wallet. Can you spot me? I just pretended I was on my phone and left him there. And walked out the door. I'd already ordered an Uber at this point, since he drove us there. And yes, don't worry. The waiter got a massive tip. About the amount of my bill, it wasn't his fault that the date was an asshat. If they are hard to talk to, might not make them a bad person. But obviously there is no chemistry if all I get are one-word answers where they also don't reciprocate questions. So you're a teacher, right? Yep. Well, that's cool. What grade? Second. Oh, what a great age. That's like the perfect time cause kids still kind of like school. Check, please. Being a know-it-all. I had lunch with someone who called the table salt sodium chloride and used the bread as a way to tell me everything he knew about complex carbohydrates, some of which wasn't even correct, and their connections to evolutionary theory. Just felt like he was compensating for something. Getting so drunk on the first date that you can't figure out Uber and I have to drive you home. No, you can't stay on my couch. I don't know you. I did this once. That relationship ended up lasting 2 years though. Was going to just be a hookup, my first time doing that, so I got drunk to not be nervous. Got too drunk. He took me back to his house and out me in pajamas and fed me pizza and held my hair while I puked. I thought he would never want to see me again. But he was cool about it. That's the story of how my friends first started dating. I want to say it was date 2 or 3. They're married now. You learn an awful lot about a person by witnessing how they take care of others when they are unable to take care of themselves. A guy who sees you home safe, holds your hair back while you hug the toilet, tucks you in and leaves with no funny business and still wants to see you the next day is probably a person worth keeping in your life. I watched a monster eat a Caesar salad with her mouth wide open. It was impressive but absolutely gross. Within 20 minutes of that date I knew where her vibrator and weed were stored at her parents' place in her room and that she made $240 every 2 weeks. Someone who doesn't ask about me. It shows that they don't actually care. I was so nervous that when he asked something, I would just talk about myself and I forgot to ask anything about him. Sad face, noticed it the second we ended the date. But we had a second one. I did get to ask him about himself and well, I really wish I hadn't. On their phone the whole time. If you can't disconnect for an hour or so to engage with me then it's not going to work. Right? I'm on a date as I'm reading this entire thread and I can't believe how much of it I agree with. This bee keeps tutting and clearing her throat loudly and I don't know why. Learn some manners. Constantly talking about their exes. I feel like there's a balance needed. For my so and I. We were upfront about weird issues we brought with us from past relationships. Everyone has baggage. You gotta be able to talk about it so your new boo won't be confused when something unimportant to them stresses you out completely. I know there are things that would have really annoyed me. You because we talked about our past relationship issues. It was a lot easier to grow past it and be better with one another. Not on the first date. A little bit, but not a whole convo. They talk over me and spend the conversation giving me unsolicited advice about how to live my life. The amount of guys who think negging is a good flirting technique is ridiculous. Contrary to what you read on WikiHow. Insulting a girl doesn't make her want to impress you. It just makes her realize you're a DK. I was once set up to go on a blind date with this girl. We were given each other's email addresses and so I hit her up. We exchanged a few pleasantries. Then set up a date, time to finally meet. The day of, I get an email from her in the morning with an attachment. I open up the attachment and there is a questionnaire with like 25 to 30 questions on it. She requested I kindly fill out the questionnaire before we meet. I quickly reviewed the questions before sending her a reply saying that it's probably best we don't meet. I don't know what characteristic she embodied, but I'd say that was a deal breaker. I was on a double date with this one girl. She seemed really cool and I was having fun on the date. Then she stuck her pinky in her ear to scratch and pulled out some ear wax. That was a little gross. But then she ate the earwax. I decided right then to not go on a second date. Spending the whole time on their phone. Had a first date with a guy once. At some point I asked him to look up something on his phone, I forget exactly what the context was. And he told me he had intentionally left his phone in his car for our date. Color me impressed. We dated for nearly a year. The type of guy who needs to flirt with the waitress or just be heavy. How else is one supposed to establish that they're an alpha? Lying. Even, if not especially, about small things. Lying about their appearance. Very specific app example, guess which one. But you see their pictures. They look nice and then they are different in person. What's the point? As a rule, if they have dog ears, a butterfly halo, or are puking a rainbow, what you see isn't what you'll get. Zero opinions on anything. If I'm going to date someone, I want some sort of brains or passion going on up there. I had this happen with a girl I was talking to 3 years ago. She seemed to have no passion about anything. And honestly it seemed like she didn't have any personal opinions. Conversation would go something like this: me, what are you majoring in? Her, history. Me, what time period are you interested in? Her, none really. Just studying it because my parents said I would probably like it. Me, what sort of job are you hoping to get at or graduating? Her, my parents said I'd make a good teacher. So I'll probably look into that. Whenever I asked her a question, the answer about why she liked something, or her interest, or an opinion, she would always talk about it as if it was someone else's idea or opinion. And it always seemed to be. One of my best friends casually began to date one of my ex-girlfriend's friends. He was really starting to like her and took her out on consistent dates. A few sleepovers, etc. My ex-girlfriend told me this girl was texting her about her date with my friend later that night. My ex asked her if she was into him as much as he was. Her literal response was, no. But free food is free food. I was hurt for him. Devastated. I didn't want him to feel what I felt, and I wasn't even the one dating her. I took my friend, roommate at the time also, aside that afternoon and asked him to please delete her number and never talk to her again. I didn't say why. I just asked him to trust me and to please stop seeing her. It's for the honest best. Knowing me for years and years. He politely accepted my request and deleted her. Without question. He knew I knew something and understood I was helping him avoid emotional pain and disappointment. He is too nice of an individual to experience that. Trust goes a long way. If all they talk about is how bad all their exes are. If all your exes are psycho. The chances are the problem is you. If you meet in a shoal in the morning, you met in a shoal. If you meet a shoals all day, you're the shoal. Raylan Givens. They only want to talk about themselves. I once had a 2-hour blind date. By the end, I knew everything about this girl. I knew all of her cats by name. And what their favorite movies were. She asked me literally nothing. And just kept jumping from topic to topic. At the end of the date, she wanted to trade numbers. And I couldn't help but ask, what's my name, and she didn't know. So I just paid for my meal and left. I once went on a date with a girl who upon learning my credit score said, wow, I'd probably let you F me in the Heavy breathing. Open-mouthed chewer or close-minded. Their drinking manners. If they insist I drink. Or suggest drinks, shots after I've declined multiple times. I'll either think you have a problem. Or you're trying to get me drunk. Both of which I don't want. Men who insist you come over. Or they come over. I'm all about prolonging a good date. And would love to go to another spot. But I really hate when men invite me over to their place. Or suggest coming to mine at the end of the night. Even worse when they get super pouty when I decline.